Who are the safest fantasy football draft picks for the 2025 season? Is that a thing? Yes. And we have got the players that you need to target right here on Fantasy Pros. This is the Football Podcast. I'm Chris Welsh. We've got Derek Brown, the King of Bros. We've got Scott Bogman in the house. And yes, there are players that are quote unquote safe and who you could potentially target. We have a wide range of kind of what that looks like as well. Mid-round players. The mid-round players that, yes, they've got ceiling, but the floor is enough that just makes them such a good pick no matter really where you get them. We've got some interesting names, wide receiver heavy. So strap in because we are hitting the safe fantasy football draft picks, which will probably be pretty good guys to target when you guys are playing your upside because we know you are. Derek Brown. We know it. RJ Harvey. We know that that's going to happen. Before we get into it, though, we want to help you guys get prepped for your draft the best way possible with the Fantasy Pros Draft Kit. We have got the complete blueprint right here for safe and smart picks. Remember, winning your fantasy league starts before draft day, and the Fantasy Pros Draft Kit gives you the knowledge to do it right. Get insight on proven strategies, must-haves, players to avoid, and more from analysts like Pat Fitzmaurice, Derek Brown, Andrew Erickson, maybe me, maybe Chris Welsh, maybe Joe Pisapia, but mainly Pat Fitzmaurice, Derek Brown, and Andrew Erickson. Don't walk into draft day guessing. Read up, lock in, and win your league. Go to fantasypros.com/kit. That's fantasypros.com/kit to get prepped and win your league today. Oh, hello, fine gentlemen. Let's get right into this. No time to waste. Safe, great targets. That's what we're talking about. Derek Brown, you have one of the safest draft picks of the 2025 season, at least in your eyes, and we'll see if Bogman agrees. Let's talk about your first safe player to target.
The poster guy for this entire conversation, I think, should be DeVonta Smith. I mean, you look at his ECR, like right now, 50th overall, wide receiver 24. For most of the offseason, guys, he's been ranked and in the ADP as a wide receiver 3, and it's insane because the floor that Smith provides people is so consistent, it is ridiculous. Over the last 3 years, he's been a locked-in top 20 wide receiver in fantasy points per game. Wide receiver 15, wide receiver 20, wide receiver 14. On a per-route basis, this guy was top 20 in every single metric we should care about. Yards per route run, first downs per route run, separation, route win rate. And yet people are like, they're not excited to draft DeVonta Smith. On a lot of teams where you could get him as your wide receiver 3 and you know you're going to get wide receiver 2 production, yes, we should all be drafting DeVonta Smith.
Bogman, do you think DeVonta Smith is truly like a safe player? There's a couple other questions I kind of think about. This term we're using, it's kind of the theme of the episode, so we're dancing around it. If you hear us say it a lot, it's because the idea is these are the safe players that you want to target that help protect your team. Do you think DeVonta Smith truly is the poster child for this term?
Yeah, I was not happy that D-Bro got to shoot first. He does this to me constantly. Whenever we're on a show together, I look at this, I'm like, okay, I'll give this a thought. And D-Bro's like, here's my guys.
I'm trying to help out the host. I get it, man. Like,
no. It's not. It helps the host. It helps everybody but me, D-Bro. You're the one that gets to pick all the good guys. DeVonta Smith is I think D-Bro said it right when he introduced this guy. The poster child for consistency. We know he is in a run-first offense. We know A.J. Brown's there, right? So it keeps him capped, but we know that he's so good he has a solid floor already. I think D-Bro is completely right that DeVonta Smith is the poster child of this type of show.
And I think this is an interesting thing we're doing, too, this kind of experiment, especially with you, too, D-Bro, our king of hot takes sometimes, with not afraid to jump in on his guys. But I think in theory, this is like an interesting thing because we spend so much time talking about the upside plays, the league winners, that you kind of forget that players like this, those are those core players that can hold your team up when you're taking your shots because we're not all going to hit on them. DeVonta Smith has kind of been a poster child of being this great floor player. I think there's a discussion about does safety take away and floor take away from upside? Smith might be one of those better guys that still provides enough upside, especially if Brown were to be out. But incredible floor. He is a safe player that Derek Brown has picked. I think you guys both co-sign this. So Bogman, your first player, another wide receiver. Like I said, this is very wide receiver heavy here. The safe player that you think people need to target in 2025. Who's your first pick?
Give me Courtland Sutton, currently 49th overall in ECR, wide receiver 22. but we keep trying to hunt for the guy around Courtland Sutton, right? Who is the second guy going to be? We know Debro loves Evan Ingram. Fitzy loves Marvin Mims. Our boy Jake Seeley likes Devon Bailey. I like Pat Bryant, right? So we're all arguing over who the second guy is. Why? We know who number one is on this team with a bullet. It is Courtland Sutton by a country mile, and he was just short of being a wide receiver one with Bo Nix last season in his first year there. I think that Courtland Sutton just there's meat on the bone for this whole offense to grow, but specifically for Courtland Sutton as well. Just signed a big deal. We know they love him. He's just a very, very safe player. If you want to call him boringly safe, I'm fair with that. I'm fine with that. I think that's a fair assessment, but there are people that avoid Courtland Sutton like the plague, and I just don't understand it at all. He's definitely one of the safest guys to me.
4 years, $92 million extension he just received. That definitely makes you feel a little bit more comfortable about how they feel about him. Debro, do safe picks have to be boring? And is Courtland Sutton a safe pick?
No, they don't have to be boring. And I think that everything Bogman laid out is perfectly, I mean, it's absolutely right. But I think there's also some hidden ceiling with Courtland Sutton that we're not talking about enough. Like, the floor is definitively there. Like what we saw last year, the guy was wide receiver 24 in fantasy points per game, the wide receiver 9 in expected fantasy points per game. So like if Nix takes another step forward, this offense becomes not a top 10, top 12 scoring offense, maybe top 5. Well, yes, like Bogman set this up perfectly. We're all chasing the number 2 in this offense and who can be that player. Why are we not talking about the number 1 option, the clear number 1 option in this offense even more?
In 2023, he went up to 10 touchdowns. Last year he had 8, plus he had 1,000 yards last year. So exactly like Debro said, I mean, the guy keeps growing. This offense is growing. There's he's got a nice floor and there's a little bit of room for growth.
Debro, what does a safe, like floor targeted player allow you to do in a draft that you might otherwise avoid? Does that make sense how I'm saying that? Like taking a core safe player, give us an example of what that might allow you to do positionally or, taking a specific shot. What do you think?
I think when you're looking at it, this all goes back to volume is king, and we're all looking for volume. But the safety in the volume can allow you to take other risks or shots on players that maybe we're worried about their early season role, i.e. some of these rookies and how you're pairing them. But I think the perfect case for this is pairing a safe floor player with consistent volume. We know they're going to be out there. The injury history is not scary, with somebody like Rashee Rice, where if he misses 2 to 6 games, you have a player that you're plugging in. You can go draft Rice and draft one of these other options and say, okay, Rice is my ceiling play. When he comes back, maybe he's a wide receiver 1 or top 15 wide receiver. But I don't know how long the suspension is going to be. But I had this other wide receiver, a Courtland Sutton, who could be my wide receiver 2. But I draft him as my 3, or maybe he's my 3 when Rice is back. You could take that risk with a player like Rashee Rice or one of these rookies and say, as this situation evolves, when this player comes back from suspension, I have a player to cover me in production. And then when they're both back at the lineup, Yahtzee. And then I'm just crushing teams weekly.
It's interesting. You went in a different direction. I love that you did that, because I think the obvious one that jumps out to me, just quickly, Bogman, before we move on to the next one, is I think the floor safe players allow you to be able to jump a little bit further to take someone like Teteroa McMillan. That's something I've talked a lot about in my strategy, is getting McMillan as a 3 is phenomenal. If you're most likely going to have great floor wide receiver 1s and 2s if you're in that market, but also taking, not necessarily that these guys are going to go after McMillan, but if you're in a spot where you can go 3-4, you could take McMillan and maybe one of these players, or having these players allows you to be a little bit more comfortable. So McMillan specifically to me, and Boggs, I know you are high on him as I am, that having a floor or 2 wide receiver allows you to take a shot on going above ECR ADP on a guy like McMillan.
Yeah, however you want to phrase it, safe players, consistent players, exactly. They help mitigate your risk. So what risk either that you've already taken earlier, or risk it allows you to take risk on the back end if you haven't taken too much risk. So I think exactly what Debro said is right. Exactly what you're saying is right here, Welsh. It's these safe players help you mitigate the risk that you either have already taken, or it allows you to take a risky player later and, throw a dart. So that's basically what they do. And I think, as you do have to take your swings in places, they can't all be big swings, though. You have to, seize the foundation of your team with some of these players.
2 more targets that are safe players that you need to get. But first, 2 more safe players that you need to target are coming up. But first, my friends, and all you fantasy football players, aren't you tired of your top players getting injured and not performing well? Of course you are. Well, lucky for you, Fantasy Pros has teamed up with Renegade Fantasy, the only fantasy football app where you can sub in a player in real time. This means no more stress, no more points lost to injuries or even poor performance. With Renegade Fantasy's app, you can step down from the luxury box and become a real-time coach. Join the Fantasy Pros League on the Renegade Fantasy Football app. Win your season and score $10,000 in cash. Are you ready to take your fantasy team to the next level? Join the Fantasy Pros League on the Renegade Fantasy app today. Go to fantasypros.renegadefantasy.com. That's fantasypros.renegadefantasy.com. We've got our second group of the safest players that you need to target in 2025. So, Debro, wax poetically, my friend, on number 2.
This is just a volume play, and I think this is a player that's going to allow people to take some of these risks, and that's Jakobi Meyers. We know what we're getting out of Jakobi Meyers, and that should be a lot of volume every single week next to Brock Bowers. Last year, after the departure of Davante Adams, Meyers was wide receiver 18 in fantasy points per game. And I'm not telling people that he's going to be a wide receiver 2 on a weekly basis. That could happen. But I think you can count on Jakobi Meyers as being a volume-fueled wide receiver 3, because you look at the context of that passing game outside of him. Jack Bech is still trying to work in with the ones. Dante Thornton is going to be a field stretcher and open up the rest of the field for Meyers and Bowers. And we know that Meyers can be that consistent and let's talk about it, guys, boring player that people are going to draft, but they're going to be happy when they do. Going at 84th overall, wide receiver 39, he's going to outplay that ADP, and you're going to get a consistent floor of targets with the upside for more, depending on what this Raiders offense looks like in 2025.
Boggs, I actually think this is the most interesting one on this list because you guys have a lot of bigger names that I think truly do encompass, like, this is safe. You want these guys that are going to produce at high levels. You know that there's a floor. Even if maybe we move away from the safe word for a second, you start talking about floor, that a lot of these guys have this great floor to wide receivers that you want. Jakobi Meyers is the one that is close to free 99. Like, the world is your oyster of when you want to draft him. And he does not have to be drafted as a wide receiver 3. And in some cases, might not even be a wide receiver 4 in some teams. Yet he has this incredible floor, especially in a full PPR. I think all of these names are great, but I think he encompasses the true value of actual value to where they're going and the safety that they provide. But do you co-sign on this?
I'll say this, I think Jakobi Meyers is a great player for when you've had risk, like we were talking about already on your team, and you want to shore up some floor. But looking at him and typically the players around him, he's not the guy I would take out of that group. But it's because I'm taking risk at that point. Typically, I'm a little safer up front. I take my risk on the back end a little bit. This is, like a Cam Scattaboo area for me. So I'm not going to be rostering Meyers, but it doesn't mean I disagree with the points that Debro made.
It is an interesting space, as far as ADP goes, which you guys can check out. Go to fantasypros.com. You can check out the ECR. You can check out rankings, ADP, because it is a range of Cooper Kupp, Jaden Reed. You maybe in some instances you might have one of the 49er wide receivers in there.
Chris Godwin,
Jennings, Chris Godwin's a little bit higher, but it's in that you're in this vicinity where there is a lot of stuff where you can start to dream on. And then Jakobi Meyers is thrown in there, and it's just well, if you want, 80 balls and 900 yards or 1,000, you just got that right there. But then it is built around all of this real big upside. So it is probably relevant to where your risk is being taken, even positionally, if Jakobi Meyers fits your mold.
Yeah, Meyers is perfect. You take Garrett Wilson, you're not sure about Fields throwing the ball as much, you pair him with Jakobi Meyers, it's pretty good. That's a nice combo of a little bit of risk and a really nice floor for mine.
Final one here, talking about these safe guys. This is probably my favorite of the players, my massive targets I'm trying to get everywhere. And I like this pick, and it's borderline right on kind of what we are allowing as far as like because obviously, a first round.
I'm not breaking any rules here.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about me stretching the rules, you narc. Come on.
We're within the confines of the rules of our game here of identifying a player that isn't like a first rounder. But this is my personal favorite player that I'm targeting everywhere, Bog. So hit us with the last of the safe players to target.
Yeah, I just barely made the cut here because I believe he's 51 and we're not to go over 48. But it's Zay Flowers, wide receiver from the Baltimore Ravens. And you guys know I'm not the biggest Ravens fan as a Steeler fan, but I mean, you cannot deny the consistency that Zay Flowers has had his first 2 seasons in the NFL. And I know he's had some amazing Lamar Jackson seasons in the NFL, but he also had Derrick Henry scoring all those touchdowns last year. So, you just take a look at what he's done. Last 2 seasons, it's 116 targets, 108 targets, 858 yards. He improved to 1059. The only thing that he went down on was the touchdowns, 5 touchdowns to 4 touchdowns, but everything else, including PFF expanded numbers, yards per route run, ADOT, yak per reception, like everything went up from year 1 to year 2. So he's improving. He's already a number 1 target on a team. Now look, Baltimore threw the 31st most in the NFL last season. They're a run-first team for sure, but Zay is a number 1. As Debro alluded to, volume is king. I think we look at him as like the lowliest of the ones in some cases, right? Like this team is going to run the ball a lot. They're not going to pass a lot. Touchdowns are going to go to Mark Andrews. They're going to go to Derrick Henry. They're going to go to Lamar. They're not going to Zay. So I think there's a little built-in upside with touchdowns with him. If he has more than 4 or 5 this season, I think that's easily doable for him. He doesn't get those targets down there. They probably have to be made on big plays. But I just think the consistency that he has in being a number 1 target in volume is there week in and week out, and we kind of ignore him because he's on a run-first team.
Yeah, Debro, the only thing I would throw out that I think he's my favorite target, but I also say that I actually think he might be the least of the safest of these players. I think that's the interesting dynamic of it. Like, I love this guy personally. I want him on all my teams, but he maybe lacks a tiny bit of what I think we identify as safe. But Bogman makes a compelling case that he is. What say you?
I mean, I think that the reason I'm not drafting as much Zay Flowers is not because he's not a safe player, because I agree with Bogman. I think he is emphatically safe. Okay. It's more along the lines that he's like a top 24-hour wide receiver in ECR, but like, I will agree with Bogman, the consistency with the production, because he's been the wide receiver 31 and the wide receiver 32 in fantasy points per game over the last 2 years. So like, I don't like the ADP or the ECR of where he's at, but you can't run away from the fact that he has been a consistent wide receiver 3, and on every per route metric, the dude pops. Like, he is freaking fantastic. So the volume, while we have concerns about DeAndre Hopkins, and I do, and it with Bogman, like about like the touchdowns have been a problem. He's been scoring like he's been doing despite of the touchdowns. So like, he doesn't really need that to keep up what he's doing.
Right.
But that does kind of cap his ceiling. So like, yeah, with Flowers, you are going for him if you're drafting him as a safe player. If not, then you're probably avoiding him.
Well, recapping again, we had DeVonta Smith, Courtland Sutton, Jakobi Meyers, Zay Flowers, a barrage of wide receivers. And maybe that also tells you positionally, where is the safety? It's that wide receiver. So you guys can target these players in your upcoming draft. And if you're looking to make the best draft plan, whether you are looking for the number 1 sleepers, the biggest busts, the players to target, not just for safety, but biggest upside, draft strategy, and more, we got you covered with the Fantasy Pros Draft Kit. Pat Fitzmaurice, Derek Brown, Andrew Erickson, their fingers are all over it, plus a bunch of our other great analysts with a bunch of great articles and everything to get you prepped. So go to fantasypros.com/kit today to get prepped for your draft, and you can take all of that knowledge into the Draft Wizard, use the Draft Assistant, and draft smarter, not harder. For Derek Brown and Scott Bogman, I'm Chris Welsh. You guys have a fantastic one, and we will talk to you next time right here on Fantasy Pros.